Good day, everybody. Thanks for joining. I know it's not the most convenient time in some parts of the world, but we appreciate the participation. The session is also going to be recorded so that we can broadcast this to others who were not able to join. But we have the pleasure of two esteemed guests, Dr. Mark Crystal, who has been a partner of Mastech with his organization NetTail.ai that many of you would have heard. And through Mark, we had the introduction of Dr. Andrew, and a lot of the discussion is going to be interaction mode for the latter half of the session. But this is a topic which is moved really at a frantic pace, but in many ways it has been building on to the data journey, to the automation journey, to the machine learning journey, etc. So we have that pleasure of hearing from Dr. Andrew, who has been there, done that in so many different ways, from running companies to advising people and CXOs to running AI funds. And I think you've all got the introduction of his background separately from me. So without further ado, I'd like to really turn it over and jump in. So Dr. Andrew, over to you.
Great, thank you. It's really nice to be here. I thought I'd just run through just a few slides to chat a little bit about opportunities in AI for Mastech and really for all of us around the world. And then we'd love to go to Q&A after that. Let's see. All right. So, I think AI is one of the hard things to understand about AI is that like electricity is a general purpose technology. A lot of technologies, like a microwave oven, is good for only one thing, but there have been a few technologies in the history of humankind that are useful for a lot of different things, like electricity, the internet, and AI. And this means that with AI progress, we will see productivity gains and new opportunities in very wide parts of the economy. And there's a lot of buzz about AI. I think a good way to think about AI is as a collection of tools. So the most valuable AI tool today is probably supervised learning, labeling things, and the new entrant is generative AI. If you study AI, you may have heard of other AI technologies, but I'll just skip over them for today. But I'll just focus briefly on supervised learning and generative AI. So supervised learning started to work really well maybe 10 years ago with the rise of deep learning, and it's very good at computing input to output mappings, kind of A to B mappings. So for example, input an email, output is this spam or not, that's spam filtering. Input an ad, output is the user likely to click on it. This is very lucrative for online advertising. For self-driving cars, we label pictures with position of the other cars. We can use it to predict how much fuel a ship will consume and optimize fuel, use it for manufacturing inspection, we can use it for sentiment classification. And with the traditional approach to AI, this is how you would build, say, a sentiment classifier, right? You'd have to collect a data set, so a bunch of examples of text as well as labels, positive and negative, and then you would get the label data, train it on the AI model, deploy and run the model, and then you can input a new piece of text, but best build you have ever had, and the output, hopefully, that's a positive sentiment. And whereas the last decade was the decade of scaling up supervised learning, which remains a very important tool, it's not at all obsolete. We still should do a lot with supervised learning. I think this decade has been adding generative AI tools on top of supervised learning tools. So many of you will have played with ChatGPT or Bard or other tools like that, and you can input a prompt like "I love eating," and then it will, if you run it a few times, it'll output different completions or different AI outputs. Because there's a lot of buzz about this, I want to take just a second I want to take just half a slide to explain how this technology actually works. So let's see. It turns out that generative AI, at the core of it, is built using supervised learning. Excuse me. Using supervised learning, the input-output mapping, to repeatedly predict the next word. So, for example, if one of the AI companies has gone on the internet and scraped a sentence like this, "My favorite food is a bagel with cream cheese and logs," this is then turned into a set of examples, a set of data where, excuse me, given my favorite food is A, what's the next word? It's bagel. My favorite food is bagel with cream and so on. And it turns out that if you train a very large neural network, a transformer network, on a very large data set, hundreds of billions of words, then you end up with a large language model like ChatGPT. And prompting is revolutionizing AI software development. So let's see. So with supervised learning, if I want to build a sentiment classifier, my workflow would be I get label data, maybe takes me a month, train on label data, takes 3 months maybe to tune a model that really works well. And then to find a cloud service to deploy it, maybe another 3 months. And the exciting thing about generative AI is with prompt-based AI, you can specify a prompt. So this takes minutes or hours, and then deploy a model to production. And this takes maybe hours or days. Let me do a quick demo. I've never done this particular demo before, so we'll see if it works. Let's see. I've done similar variations, but never this one, so we will see. But I want to show you how I develop. Sorry, trying to find the right window to share. So I want to show you how I develop. All right. Okay. Cool. Great. How you can develop a sentiment classifier using just a few lines of code. So from LangChain, straight to import a llama. That's my URL. Classify the following statement: positive and negative sentiment. Oh no, attending tech meeting. All right, so let me run this, and with just specifying a prompt like this. Oh, and what? Oh, good. All right, see, it output positive, right? I wonder if I can do this. Output either positive or negative. Let me try this. Right, positive, there. So this is literally how long it takes me to build a sentiment classifier. And you may have seen demos like this before, but what you may not have seen, what you may not know is this is actually running locally on my laptop. I'm not sending this off as an API call to cloud service. This model, Llama 2, is actually running on the laptop that I'm projecting from. And so our ability to either use cloud-hosted services from OpenAI, Google, AWS, Azure, and others, or even to run models locally, so that data to privacy preserving, to not leave my laptop at all, is I think pretty incredible. Although the model that I can run on my laptop isn't as good as GPT-4, but you can actually run local models that are almost as good as maybe GPT 3.5. All right, so just one last thing. I think that one thing that I feel like is with all of these new opportunities, there are opportunities to start new companies. So that's what my team at AI Fund does. But also incumbent companies, large mature companies also have lots of opportunities to integrate AI into your existing businesses. And often your distribution advantage and other assets means that there are very unique things that Mastech would be able to do that are nearly impossible or much more difficult for a startup to do. But just be concrete about where are the opportunities. It turns out that if I look at the AI stack, the lowest level is maybe the hardware level. And then on top of that are infrastructure and developer tools. And with every wave of new tech, there's usually a lot of media attention on the infra and tooling layer because people want to talk about OpenAI and Anthropic and Gemini and so on. It is exciting, nothing wrong with that. But it turns out that for the infrastructure and tooling layer to be successful, almost by definition, the application layer has to be even more successful because we have to hope that the applications can generate even more revenue so that they can afford to pay the infrastructure and the tooling layer. So I think that both with small startups and with incumbent businesses, I think that there are many opportunities to identify and build new applications that just were not possible before, that are not possible. Maybe not in minutes, but maybe in months, that would have taken years to build. And I know that and Mark and I are both excited to work with you to see how we can best support that at Mastech. So thank you all very much.
That was awesome, Dr. Andrew. I mean, just hearing from you in a kind of very real world sense of how it brings to life. Mastic has been, as you can imagine, dabbling in this area for many years, but more so in the recent few months from 2 or 3 different dimensions. But it'd be great to kind of get your perspective as we work with more customers. Whether it's healthcare or manufacturing or any industry for that matter, as we work with more hyperscalers, right? AWS, Azure, OpenAI, and of course the applications. How are clients, creating value and creating business outcomes, and kind of where is this all headed in the next 1 or 2 years from your lens perspective?
Yeah, maybe I'll say a couple of things, and then I think Mark has a deep perspective on this too. So I'll say a couple of things, see if Mark wants to add to it. But I feel like it's going to take longer than any of us wish. When deep learning started to work, is now maybe more than 10 years later, we're still not yet found all the very valuable applications of deep learning. And one of the challenges of general purpose technology is we had to find, the right person in healthcare and financial services and retail and all of these sectors to talk to then brainstorm the right application and then build it and test it. So it's actually going to take. I kind of am excited at the many years of hard work ahead of us. And one recipe that we use is we often work upon is to look at what people are doing, because jobs are made out of tasks. So we tend to do a systematic analysis of take jobs, break them down into tasks, and then try to systematically see what are the opportunities for automation. But Mark's been doing this a lot too.
Yeah, I would just add that we're going through that iterative learning process as well, trying to figure this out. And what we've found is almost the combination of like generative AI and machine learning seems to be for me where it's going to head, because what we're finding as we work in particular in the retail industry, the users want some kind of language interface. They don't really understand what the output from a model is, but they understand it if it's explained in business terms. And we're finding that the generative AI kind of layer sitting on top of a machine learning model is quite effective at doing that, and that's really what we've built into our Profit Mine solution. But as Andrew said, there's still a lot of learning, a lot of iteration to go and really figure this out. But we're very much focused on like what are the tasks and how do we apply these different types of AI to solve the different tasks.
Oh, great, fantastic. Just there's a flip side to every positive movement, and some of these are unstoppable, like we've seen in cloud and other machine learning type of waves. But there's always some risks and existential threats and privacy, security. I mean, Dr. Andrew, what is your perspective on that in terms of, I mean, of course, there's a lot of positive things but what are the things we should be concerned about, right, when it comes to Gen AI?
Yeah, so I think the things that many people in Gen AI are working hard on is to make sure we ensure our systems are reasonably free from bias. Inaccurate results can sometimes, do real damage. Kind of bias, fairness, inaccurate results. I think that there will. I feel like job loss. People are probably more worried about it than they should be. But I think that we should, because AI only automates a subset of tasks, and so what we'll find is that most people become more productive. And I think that's going to be great for everyone. But I think we do have to make sure to provide training to people so that they can ride this wave and become the best version of themselves using Gen AI. Oh, by the way, I use GPT-4 and locally run large language models running on my laptop. I use it multiple times a day, and I feel very sure they make me more productive as an individual. So one of the challenges is this is a general purpose technology that can make almost everyone, certainly almost all knowledge workers, I think, more productive and maybe find their job more satisfying. So this means that we have a big training effort ahead of us as well, both to use the general purpose technologies like, ChatGPT, subject to privacy, or BART, or locally run large language models. And then also, as you start to identify new opportunities, I think every business will have build versus buy decisions. And so when Mark and I were chatting with some users of Profit Mine, it was interesting to see how a few large retailers, C-suite, almost had their mind blown, right? Kind of like, wow, can't believe that we've been doing this for years, had no idea there was this much upside opportunity. And then I think there's also just a little bit of thinking about the workflow. It's a new thing. So I think that the people working in retail, fortunately, seem excited, to figure this out and then figure how to drive pricing or merchandising. So I think that type of training, I think I wish I could say it's not going to be hard. I think the training is actually going to be a little bit of a challenge across society.
No, I mean, you're right. It is, and it's going to be continuous, right? Because there will be so much evolution and things are moving at a fast pace. But you touched on another kind of interesting point even earlier. There are these kind of big players, if you will, big tech players, and obviously we are seeing everyone from not just the hyperscalers, but even some of our partners like Salesforce and ServiceNow and others investing in this very significantly. And then there are startups. And great examples of startups that you're funding, and NetTail is someone who we partner with, as you know. How do we see some of these business opportunities? I mean, is it going to be a combination, just like everything else, of these big tech players and startups, or how do you kind of sort of see it in terms of evolution? Because startups will play a role. It's just that it's so fast evolving, and the big players will continue to invest or acquire. And so, how do you see it, Dr. Andrew?
But the broad patterns, I feel like the incumbents often have a distribution advantage. So if there's a feature that one of the cloud companies can add to their cloud services, I think it's quite hard for a small startup to compete. Like a new API call, added onto one of the hyperscaler cloud services, or a new feature, I don't know, added to one of the leading web browsers or something. Quite hard for a startup without the distribution advantage to compete. But I think for almost everything else, the sheer speed and velocity of startups, I personally find it fun to do things at speed in startups, right? But I think there are actually opportunities for both. And actually, one of the things we're seeing with some large companies is set up a startup within the big company, and I think that like a nimble, agile team within the big company, and that also works. And but I'll just mention one other thing. I find that with every wave of technology, it's good if many people across the organization learn to use the technology. And so I feel like I often advise companies, subject to safety and not violating privacy and not leaking data and so on, subject to some reasonable safety things. It's good if the business just tries a lot of things, because then many people across the organization can then learn these tools and hone their instincts. So I find that some of the businesses that Mark was working with, they're actually working with multiple things, right? One of the things they do is work with Mark, but that type of Gen AI skill set that Mark and team, partner with the company to build out, that knowledge then starts to diffuse within the organization, and that lets the company build a specific thing they're doing, say with Mark, but then also use that knowledge in other places as well. I don't know, Mark, do you want to add anything?
No, I agree. And actually, the companies we're working with, again, in the retail space, they're very interested in working with startups exactly for that knowledge gain, because they know that we're going to move faster, we're going to be nimble, we're going to help them do that kind of quick project start and that quick learning that they need to get going in their organization. And then to your point, they can then take it from there once we've completed the project with them. And we're finding that's very beneficial for us, but for them as well.
Absolutely. I know, Dr. Andrew, you have other AI startups and funds, and you've been involved in so many different industries. On retail, we're already very passionate about it. In fact, we've been talking to a couple of large kind of retailers together. Which are the other industries that you're most excited about in terms of impact and adoption and opportunities?
Yeah, the unsatisfying answer I have is really all of them. But maybe I find that industries that are more digital tend to be more ready. So for example, financial services, healthcare, and retail are some of the industries that are more digital already. And so that tends to have the skill set and some of the data needed and the software infrastructure to do things. Whereas I don't know, for example, natural resource extraction, that's just a less digital industry at this point in time. But what we're seeing is that many industries that were traditionally not really digital, they're all becoming more digital. So it feels like many industries are getting increasingly ready.
No, I agree. I mean, you're right. Financial services typically and healthcare. Healthcare is a big focus for Mastech, and we do have global customers. In fact, some of the use cases that have progressed. We were talking just before this call. NHS is a big client, King Faisal Hospitals, Blue Cross Blue Shields, and we're seeing some interesting use cases. And to your point, both internally and externally in terms of partnering, but also in terms of internally digitizing and using AI will be critical. Maybe, just pivoting towards one of the last thoughts, since I know we've limited time. You mentioned training. I mean, you mentioned obviously a couple of other things of how we should be using cross-functionally. But what advice do you have? What recommendations do you have for a company like Mastech? In the IT services and the IT solutions industry. Any suggestions or thoughts would be great from your side.
Excuse me. I think almost anything you do in training, my guess is they'll have a positive ROI. So, I think it's actually very exciting how many industries Mastech touches, right? I think I've come across your work in healthcare and life sciences, the stuff on retail that you're talking to Mark about, manufacturing, financial services, higher ed, and so on and so on. And I think that I find that life is really fun when you're in an organization that can work across, that has visibility into so many different industries, because it leaves a lot of creativity. And some of the courses on Coursera, for example, Generative AI for Everyone, that I teach is intended for a non-technical audience. I feel like if almost everyone does that, it'll help everyone have a firm basis to think through how generative AI might affect the business, how they could develop their career within Mastech. So I think that type of training will be helpful. Oh, and maybe just one last thing. I find it's good often to just work on projects quickly and try to deliver some quick wins. When there's a new technology, it's okay if the first project isn't the biggest ROI. If it's a small positive ROI, but you do it quickly, I would celebrate that, because then the learnings helps you go on to do a second bigger project and then even bigger one after that. So yeah.
No, that's awesome. I mean, we, by the way, have a goal, internal goal to everyone in Mastech to take that course that you're referring to by first week of January. So let's see how we do, and that's a continuous process. But we really appreciate you joining in and addressing us and giving some of the insights. Mark, anything that you'd like to add? Otherwise, we can conclude and wrap up. So.
No, I'd just like to thank Andrew and also thank you, Hiral, and the whole Mastech team for your support and partnership. It's been great.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you
very much, Dr. Andrew, and thanks, Mark, again. Appreciate it. Yeah.